This time around for the journey, I've got a brand new backdrop, but we'll get to that in a moment. Introducing first Paul Smith from Supergoat Media. Hello.
G'day, Kev.
How are you going?
I'm well.
That's good.
I'm
You've got a
well.
prop.
I've got a prop. Yes, I brought in my my cinema camera because I knew we'd be getting some photos, and you have to make that singular image say everything you need it to say. So, yeah, that's me.
We always start with somebody's connection to the local area. This is a very local series to the border and northeast. And we start with the heritage. Tell me how you've come to live here, where you've come from. Paint that bit of a picture.
Yeah, look, my wife and family, so at the time we moved here in 1999. So at that stage we had two young kids. And from Sydney, northern beaches of Sydney. And I guess we were sitting around thinking, where can we watch the world implode with a Y2K bug? Let's do it in Albury. Let's move down there. Not exactly, kind of exactly. We moved here to open Green Zebra. So we had a pasta business in Sydney. We were making pasta for restaurants in Sydney. We had sold that business. I was working in a restaurant cooking. And I guess it was Wendy's idea that we open another kind of pasta-based business, but we wanted to do bigger and better than what we had in our hardboard store, which was a smaller shop. We had smaller machinery. We were off the main street in a little kind of shopping arcade. And so the scale just wasn't right. I was making pasta all day, every day, selling everything we made, but we still weren't really making any money. We just couldn't make enough. So we thought, let's do more, bigger, better. Wendy was from Canowindra originally. She was kind of from the country, so she was always keen to move out of Sydney. So our choice to move here was, I guess, an academic one. We looked at demographics. We looked at the region, the prospects for the region. We shortlisted a few places: Coffs Harbour, Bowral, here. Multiple trips and observations and studies, and we thought, let's move there. So we did. We didn't know anyone. We had zero connection here when we moved. So that's how we ended up here.
The original tree changer, perhaps, before it became a thing.
Yeah, well, it was definitely not a term then. What was the term that preceded tree change? I can't even think now. Anyway,
probably
sea change.
Sea change. Yeah.
Well, we were on the sea. We used to live 5 minutes away from DY Beach. But yeah, so here we are.
You're here with a business doing something that you love in Green Zebra. How many years did you operate that?
Yeah, so we opened it from scratch and we ran it for 18 years. So we sold it beginning of 2018. So that was a pretty long haul in any hospitality business, particularly the same business. But for us it had run its course. It was time. It was time to move on. But a terrific business, and obviously. When you have a business in the middle of the main street of a town, you meet a lot of people. It kind of puts you on the map in that sense, and that was a great thing. And in retrospect, I guess this being a bit of a therapy session, and we get to regress a little bit, it was totally the right move. Choosing Albury or the Albury-Wodonga as a region to move to. Yes, absolutely was the right thing to do. So a lot of those decisions that we made that helped us to choose here, were the right ones.
So let's go back to how I've introduced you as being from Supergoat Media and the image on the backdrop of the journey, which from now onwards, for some considerable time, will be the backdrop, and it's over your right shoulder. For anybody that's watching the video, those listening on a podcast, you need to make sure you jump online and have a look at the image I'm talking about. How does the pasta maker go from that into cinematography and still image and things like that?
So I guess... I've taken the opportunity to leave some of the grey whiskers on just to show that there are a few miles under the belt. So the thumbnail sketch, Supergoat Media for me, and I guess to explain what Supergoat Media is first. I mean, I'm effectively a video production business and photography. But that really shortchanges what I do. I do mostly profile videos, and I would call them brand stories for businesses, organisations. But I'm not selling products or selling stuff. I think we're bombarded enough with that. Really what I'm doing is producing content that in some sense establishes trust. So, and one of the devices that I use in that, I like to go deeper, find out more, find out why people do things, and I guess I'm after that essence of authenticity in a business or a organisation or a not-for-profit, and so that's in effect what I do. But how I came to do this, for me, Supergoat Media is full circle. So I get to use almost everything that I've ever done encapsulated in this one thing. Now, when I left school, I wanted to be a rock star. A quick scan of the newspaper says, "Oh, no rock star ads, going." So after a 6-month little diversion studying economics at uni, I thought, not economics, accountancy. It's like, this is not a good fit for me. I quit that. And I trained in a recording studio. So this was back in the days when a recording studio had 2-inch tape and 24 tracks and, nothing digital then. Although they did have a digital reverb that cost them $10,000 that they were absolutely so proud of. And I did that as well as working for a live sound company. So I spent 10 years in, I guess, what I would call the professional audio and video industry. I'd be visiting video post-production houses or, Foley studios that do, the gravel sounds in a movie when a car wheel pulls over, or, recording studios where music's recording, and I'd be either selling equipment or mixing live shows, or we merged with another company that did color grading monitors, video monitors. So I'd be talking to the chief engineer of Channel 7 about their color grading monitors. So I was involved in that field for about 10 years. During that time, it became clear that my rock star aspirations might not just eventuate. Who would have thought? And we travelled. We quit our jobs, and Wendy and I went overseas for 6 months. And during that time, I learnt how to cook. Not in any professional way, but if you're in a combi and you have no money and you're travelling through Europe, you got to learn how to cook. So, and we cooked. We would have lots of pasta because that was something simple that even I could cook. We saw lots of things, lots of foods, lots of markets. And I guess that kind of really got in, and I really just fell in love with the whole cooking and flavours and whatnot. So when we got back, it wasn't an instant shift into cooking, but over a period of years, I suppose, the cooking got stronger. I was a bit tired of, I guess, working in the sound and that kind of field when I didn't, the music thing kind of wasn't happening. And So I went to TAFE, learnt how to cook food safely. Back then, safe food handling was a 6-month, 2-night-a-week course, whereas I think it's glossed over a lot quicker these days. And we quit our jobs and opened a business making pasta. I'd never worked in a restaurant. I'd never made pasta commercially, but I'd worked at KFC for 6 months, so that was my kind of food experience business. So, yes, it was a bit ballsy to do that, but that got us down that road. We did that for 4 or 5 years, sold that, cooked in a restaurant, moved to Albury. But now when I'm behind the camera, if you add up those years, that's probably 25 years of self-employment, own business, small businesses. That's just code for self-promotion. Marketing, all the selling that I did in the audio and video world came into play. It didn't faze me at all having a new product to a new industry, new for me. Knocking on doors, making phone calls. There's no internet back then. To introduce a new product, handmade fresh pasta just wasn't something back then. We're talking 93 to 97 or so. So back then there was kind of no one other place doing that style of pasta and selling it commercially. Didn't faze me at all going to those places, because in effect that's what I had been doing up to then, except with audio equipment or video equipment. Yeah. Fast forward now, when I've got a camera and I'm talking to businesses or organisations, about video content, it's the same process. Anything that I've learnt about how to present yourself, how to market yourself. I mean, now of course we have to call it branding, but
yes,
it was never called branding back then. It's all full circle, but there's the technical element of it too, which I just love. I love the editing. I love the whole sound and mixing. I do all the music and the soundtracks mostly for my projects. I've got more power in my computer than in any studio or station or post-production house that I had ever been in. That's amazing too.
Technology's made the hobby accessible and professional, I guess.
Well, it has. Yeah, look, I mean, back, you would remember cart machines, I'm sure, playing,
cart
music.
Machines, reel to reel.
Yeah, well, when cart machines, I used to work for a company that made them, an Australian company, and they just had started to go digital when I was kind of getting more involved in making pasta than into audio. And it took a long time, I think, for digital technology to provide decent enough fidelity so that it was a viable alternative. But, of course, now in our computers, just being able to edit video where you can just make a cut, slide, trim. I used to have to edit with a razor blade.
Yeah. Technology's certainly handy in that. It's quite a fascinating point that you make around the transferable skills. It sounds like you've probably figured out that people are people. So it doesn't matter what it is as a solution you're trying to fix. Doesn't matter what the revenue stream might be. What you're trying to create is essentially almost duplicated across different parts of the life.
Look, people. I'm hesitating because I think for me it's the big epiphany that everything is about people. You might remember the ad on TV, the genie in a bottle, and the genie comes out, oh, what wish? Oh, I want a pack of Tim Tams that never runs out. Bugger that. Give me people skills. If you've got people skills, like, you're golden. It doesn't matter what realm you want to work in. It's always about people. It's always with people. It's for people, and it is absolutely people based. I mean, I love the fact now that I get to, I guess, explore, more deeply people and their businesses and what makes them tick, why they do what they do. But it was the same in the shop, staff, customers, people.
Understand them. How do you think other people would describe you, Paul?
So, again, hesitation, that's terrible, isn't it, in an audio sense? One of the things I do hear back is energy. And I think it's not Energizer Bunny energy, because I'm not that kind of... I'm not that guy, but I do make a real conscious effort to bring positive energy to a project. Nothing's a problem. We can get it done. If there is a problem, and you've seen my gear, there can occasionally be things that, whatever it might be, well, that stays with me. I don't make my problems someone else's, because we're here to get stuff done. If I'm covering an event, or if I'm playing at an event, the event is the most important thing. Not me as a musician, not me as a as a camera person. It's never about me. It's about the event. It's about the client. It's about the project. It's about their message or their story. So I think one of the things that I hear is that people do like that kind of energy, and that makes me feel great, because I guess it's a conscious effort. You always want to be the person that is largely good to work with. I'd like to think I'm good to work with. So again, conscious effort. I think that might be.
So you mentioned earlier on the rock star that was the dream job. The rock star was the dream job. You've obviously clearly got a creative side. You're prepared to have a crack at things. Am I led to believe you've got a song that's accessible or something?
So I have over the years I have more than a singular song, but so yeah. Look, I've been a lifelong musician, and my little niche in that whole big world is, I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. I'm no particular virtuoso on any instrument, but I play a bunch of different things, and that works well into my background. So having had recording experience, live sound experience, video experience, and we've already talked about the power that we have in our computers. It means that I can, pretty confidently sit and write and record music myself, and I love that. So I guess the songwriting is probably what excites me the most about music. Although, I play in a couple of bands, and I do love the performance side too. But I really do like the writing. I like the craft of it. I love being able to really kind of drill down into ideas. So, yes, there's a particular single out that I did last year in the midst of COVID. I was doing a video project for Millua Bread. I'm sure Adam won't mind me talking about it, or maybe he will, but he's not here.
So we'll talk about
it. And when I was kind of booked to do the project, now they had a big story, and it also happened to work well with some really big visuals, so we could get some lovely geographic shots and the mountains and whatnot. One of the things he said right from the outset is, "Mate, that sounds great, but I can't be in it." Well, actually, Adam, a lot of this is to do with you, and you have to be in it. No, I'm not talking on the camera. I'm not going to do it. Well, I'd really like, I need something from you. And we we agreed after some negotiation where I would do an audio interview and I would use his words and his speaking, but he wouldn't be speaking on the camera. Now, I didn't know at the time, but when I hit record on my sound recorder, he is a walking quote machine. Lots of insights. The way he speaks is eloquent, but also just has a lovely way of describing things and a lovely approach, which yielded not just good content for the video, but more than I could use. But I decided to use some of his lines and ideas in, I guess, a finale piece to the video. I normally wouldn't do vocals. I would normally just write the music and do it that way. But I did do a vocal-oriented track because there was more from what he'd said than what I could use. That yielded, I guess, a chorus, and I'd written a verse already. That didn't make it onto the video, but I had a verse and a chorus, so I fleshed it out into a song. And since I had turned it into a song and it was COVID, so I was at home for a length of time there after that project finished. I tidied up the recording, mastered it, and put it up on Spotify, thinking that particular project did get a lot of press too. So I think ABC covered it, some of the papers as well, and it was well covered. So I thought it was kind of a nice addendum, I suppose, to that particular project. So
have you retired off the Spotify royalties yet, or
from a previous release that I did 10 years ago, of no worthiness or note, might I add, but in any case, it is up there somewhere. I do occasionally get royalty checks from Spotify. The first one was after 5 or 6 years, and it was for 25 American dollars. Foolishly, with my distribution, the people that I use, I had ticked the box to say send my royalty checks, never expecting to get any, in check form, which meant they sent me a check for 25 American dollars. When I took it into the bank, so proud, it's my first royalty check. And the bank said, yeah, we can cash the check, but there's a $25 fee because it's from overseas. It's like, what? So anyway, I subsequently did get another one. So I have, in fact, made 50 American dollars from my royalties from previous releases at a fraction of a cent. Apparently there's people in Belarus and Russia and the Ukraine that somehow like some of that older music. Who knew?
They love Paul Smith.
Yeah, fraction of a cent per stream. There's issues there too, but that's a story for another day.
What do you do when you're not working? Hobbies, things like that.
Yeah, one of the things about crafting a life and a business that's based around doing stuff that you love, that of course when you're not doing it, you still really want to be doing it.
Yeah.
Now, what that means for me is that quite often in my, air quotes, off time, downtime, I'll be, my wife is a keen gardener, more than keen, but let's land on keen for the time being. Keen gardener. We grow all our own veggies, and we did for the cafe as well. But she's also very much into native plants, and particularly indigenous native plants. So we'll often go on what we'll call, excursions, day trips around the area. It might be looking at native grasses or different plants. So, of course, plants being the most beautiful and attractive things ever, I'm always going to have a camera with me. But we spend a lot of time in the bush. We've got 3 acres in Kiwa, so we also spend a lot of time just working in the garden at our place. But look, in the past, I have. I used to surf when I was on the beaches. I was a mad keen surfer, and did a lot of rock climbing too. When we moved here, I was a pretty keen rock climber, but I was never very good. I say I was never very good. in terms of grades and technical ability, I wasn't very good, but I can't have been too bad because I'm, still here. Yeah. so to me, a good rock climber is an alive rock climber.
True.
But I haven't climbed since we've been down here, so most of my downtime is spent, outside in our place or in the surrounding area. I mean, as you can see from the photo there, I mean, it's a beautiful part of the world. Within an hour of where we're sitting right now, there's amazing stuff. So too much to explore.
And I think that's the common theme throughout the years of this journey that we're on. It's always the thing that comes back to is what's around us and how accessible it is. And if you don't have what you need here, how quickly you can get to it and easily. That's why people love living here. We're talking to Paul Smith on this journey. Who do you admire the most and why?
Now, I laugh at every question because I'm not sure I'm capable of simple answers, so I don't even know if I'm going to try. Who do I admire most? I'll answer that collectively, because I don't have a singular person that I guess wins that category. But I find so much, and inspiring is such a terrible word because it's overused that I don't want to use it, except I can't think of a better one. There's so many people that I've met in my work that have just done amazing things, not because how they've dealt with hard situations, and obviously we're in the midst of hard situations, COVID and all. But it's not just that. I think I really do admire people that can work through a tough situation. That might be people in addiction recovery, and they live every day. Every day is a new day. That's totally inspiring and difficult. Far more inspiring than a singular kind of big achievement. But look, I think of people like Janelle from Feathertop Wines. They had the bushfires. They had a whole January planned of, of cellar door action and activities, and they had to, evacuate with the fires, and they just lost their whole kind of trading for that period of time, and then they lost their harvest with the the smoke taint. And then they're just starting to get back, and then COVID hits and it shuts them down, and they've worked out ways to make it work. They'll have random sales. They're back doing some events now, and I just she'll talk about we played at a wedding there at the end of last year, and she was saying she had one weekend where they had a wedding rehearsal booked on the Friday, and they had already had a wedding booked for that Friday, and then the rehearsal was to be on the Saturday, and this is on one of those quick lockdowns. So she rang them up and said, "Hey, why don't we do your wedding tonight? You've got 2 hours. Can you make it happen?" Sure, right. And they mapped it out, and bang, 2 hours, put on a wedding, second wedding for their day. That's amazing. So they're the kinds of people and actions and mindset that I admire the most.
Self-explanatory. Quotes. You mentioned earlier on that you admired Adam from Illawarra Bread's ability to sort of talk in quotes. Did you get some good quotes from him, or just is there a mantra, a philosophy, something that you really love, or that you filter across every decision, or?
Almost. There's a couple. One is that I'd rather be sorry I did something than sorry I didn't. I don't know where it comes from, but and I would certainly hate for you to think that makes me some kind of a I don't know, like a dynamic go get 'em kind of guy. That's not the case at all. There's quite a lot of inertia for me to move into something, and far more inertia to move out of it. But that said, when I look back at some of the key things, over my life, there's been big, career changes and big shifts. And so that idea that, well, ultimately I would rather do it and either make it work or then regret, not doing it. So that would be one. I think probably the most profound thing that really has shaped a lot of, in an aspirational way, what I would like to be like is, I remember talking to a customer in the shop in the early days of the shop, and her job was, I guess, in personnel or HR or something along those lines. And anyway, she just, as a throwaway line, she said, Paul, who doesn't want to be told that they're doing a good job? And that floored me, mostly floored me because I thought, oh God, I don't tell, my staff that they're doing a good job that often. I mean, I guess I do. Oh no, there was that once I remember.
Yeah.
It wasn't ingrained, I think. And from that moment, that really set off, it set off that, or unlocked that idea in me, because I think it's just a universal truth that everyone, who doesn't want to be told they're doing a good job? No one turns up to work and think, oh, I'm going to do a really crappy job today. People put in,
Yeah.
in across all sorts of endeavours, be it volunteer or whatever. And I think, and that's not to say that I was always the benchmark of positive praising as an employer, but I certainly lifted my game from that moment and, had moments of, doing well with it, other moments not doing as well. But as I say, it's aspirational and,
It's a funny observation, though, that I'll add to with that one. Because when you do practice delivering praise, regardless if someone's doing a good job in their workplace, whatever it might be, sometimes it's almost awkward because people don't know how to respond. But also when someone praises you, you sort of sometimes feel awkward that you go, well, I get paid to do it. Like, what?
Yeah.
What, that's what I've signed up for. What more would you expect from me?
Yeah.
Like, it does create an awkward conversation, but it's a very valid, I guess, situation. The situational awareness, I guess, that person's created for you in life.
I think that conversation is as much a part of why it's a good thing than the nugget of praise itself. Conversations, people skills, as we've talked about. That's all. You can crystallize that into communication. And the better we are as individuals in our communication, then the better things are.
And what do you consider to be your biggest achievement in life so far?
Again, you ask a question and I sit back and laugh and pause. I don't know why that is.
You got to get it right. That's why.
Well,
Just for the record.
Because I think the thing that I'm most proud of isn't something that deserves pride as an emotion. It's not an achievement, but the fact that so Wendy and I, my wife, we were childhood sweethearts. So we got together in year 10 of high school. For those math students out there, that was 1980. In fact, we got together on 15th of November 1980, if memory serves correctly. So, we went out for a long time before we got married, so we've been married for, 50 million years. And so, everything else you could strip away from things that I've done or situations I've been in or good things that have happened or awards that we've won or anything like that. And, wife and family, that's kind of it.
Yeah.
Really for me. But like I say, it's not an achievement. So it's perhaps a peculiar answer to that question. People would look, I suppose, at me and say, "Oh, Green Zebra, that was a great business, and you should, and it was, and we did well, and it was a good business." But again, that's not an achievement that I can claim. We had a staff of, I don't know, 15 people, 20 people. Wendy and I would work together on it, and we're both active and equal partners in its operation. So, I suppose I can claim a 15% stake in that air quote achievement. I'm not sure what percentage stake I could claim in our marriage achievement. Maybe it's less. Maybe it's less than 15%. So anyhow, but I am proud of those things, and I'm proud of the work that the projects that I've done in Supergoat. I mentioned the Mill of Bread one. There's a big one coming out very shortly for Business Wodonga. Not so much from a cinematic point of view, although obviously I've put a lot of time and effort into that half of it. But I love the stories that this work can reveal, the emotional, the engaging content that people will deliver in front of my camera. So I really do. I'm proud of that work too. So that's a personal pride as opposed to an external. Oh, you've done such a good job. I'm not kind of talking about that, but yeah. So.
Let's talk about sliding door moments and decisions and all those bits and pieces. So you've identified already through this journey a couple of those and significant ones, and it looks like you've taken a fairly methodical approach to your relocation out of Sydney into the Albury-Wodonga region, and then you've obviously fallen in love and stuck around. But have you got any sort of there that you look back at and go, "Oh, fork in the road"?
There's been situations. There's been plenty of situations where I've not handled them well that I wished, in retrospect, I could do better. And I think, probably through that lens, I'm not sure if that's specifically tailing in on that question or not, but I think if I had my time again, I would put. I feel at the time I put a lot of energy into managing staff because it wasn't a strength. So when you're not strong at something, you have to work harder at it. So that was kind of that was really the approach that I took. It was a bit of a hard learning experience actually when we opened Green Zebra, where I had to realise that it wasn't a food business, but it was a people business. Yeah. Food ultimately is easy. Scientific principles apply, and when you apply, heat to a protein, there's certain measurable things that will happen when you cook. It's largely controllable. Getting other people to cook in a way that achieves those same results, not quite as easy. Yeah. And so I would, if I had my time again, I would put as much effort as possible and then more into staff and people in general. And I think, if I had any sway in, educational curriculum, then I would try and somehow get something like that built into curriculum, because it's just, people are so important.
Yeah. So. Benefit of hindsight, what advice would you give a younger you?
What advice would I give a younger me?
Maybe give up on the rock star career a little earlier than you did.
But see, that's the thing. I in fact, maybe some of that advice would be, don't look at things in such a binary way. I want to be a rock star. Well, what is that anyway? What does that mean? That, rock stars are just business people whose business is music, and they still have to work hard. They still might fall out of love with the business that they found themselves in. Right. So it's not that I want to be a rock star. I want the dream that I think that it is. Well, that's not reality. So perhaps the advice to my younger self might be along those lines, is to look at things less, glorify less things, and try and be a bit more realistic, and also accept that enjoy the moment, enjoy where you are. I've not been a great one for that whole mindfulness idea of accepting this moment right now. When I say not being a good one for it, I'm a total believer in the idea of it, but I've not been a great practitioner. But that is something that I try and work on, and I think I've certainly been a lot better with that in this business, where I love, or at least make an effort to love, every part of what I'm doing. Load the car up and head out on a shoot. How good is that? I drive from my place out to Bright, or I don't know, Millawar or Corryong or wherever it might be, and it's like, and I do this for a living. This is amazing. So, perhaps that might be the advice to my younger self then, to crystallise it. It's just be more mindful.
2020 into 2021, we've sort of added the theme of COVID, a significant moment in history. What's happened for you? I mean, you've spoken a bit about obviously being locked down like others and what have you, and hopefully, like everybody else, you haven't managed to get your to-do list done, because everybody thought, this is great, I'll get all these things done that I've never had time to do, and none of us have ever managed to achieve it that I've found yet. But what's it changed for you going through a pandemic?
So, I was lucky, and I guess in a sense I'm loath to talk about COVID experiences for me in a way that's anything other than a small n negative. Yes, it did impact me, it impacted everybody, but so many people have had such huge, monumental upheavals and have had to face that I don't in any way want to come across like that was my situation. When I'm not out filming, my work is at home. So the lockdown portion of it is identical for me, other than it's a bit harder to go, to the shops or whatnot. I was lucky that I had a couple of bigger projects. I mentioned the Millawar bread one, and there were another couple of projects that I had either finished filming or was able to complete the filming, and then I could do all the post-production at home, which kind of carried me through, I think, the deep, dark middle of the year period. So that was probably the biggest impact. I did have a couple of weeks there. Everyone will remember those couple of weeks where the phone never stopped ringing of people cancelling.
Yeah.
So, as I say, as a musician in a band that plays a lot of weddings, that one's cancelled, that one's cancelled, that one's cancelled, that one's cancelled. I was booked to film a bunch of events, other projects for businesses. And so over a 2-week period, all of a sudden the calendar freed up. Not unique to me. I know that was the case all around. That was a bit confronting. That's when, as they say, this stuff got real at that point. But like I say, being able to do a lot of the post-production work at home did carry me through. The biggest impact for me for COVID was family. My daughter and her boyfriend are in Sydney. My son and his now wife, they were married at our place in January of 2020. You'll remember the day because it was 46 degrees.
Yeah.
Well, that was the day they got married. And then they came back from their honeymoon, cruise in Asia, which in retrospect wasn't the best idea, but they came out unscathed. And then they moved straight to Adelaide. So I've got, son and daughter-in-law in Adelaide. I've got a daughter and boyfriend and family in Sydney. We're in Albury and we couldn't see any of them. So by far the biggest impact, COVID for me has just been that forced and prolonged kind of fracturing of the family. So we do the best we can now and try and catch up, but it still we've made 2 trips to Sydney this year, both times for 2 nights, and both times we had to turn around after one night and hightail it back home because of an outbreak or a lockdown or something. So, my mum turned 90. We missed her 90th birthday. We went up to Sydney for it, and it was the next day, and it was in Feb, and we had to turn around and come back. We missed her birthday. So, yeah, that for me is the biggest impact.
That's a tough one. As we work towards the end, an oldie but a goodie, if you were able to invite 3 people to a dinner party and were allowed to go alive or dead, who would you have there?
So, 3 people at a dinner party. I'm going to be creative with my answers here. The first would be Bono. Not from a musical. I'm sure if he was there, there'd be jamming involved later on in the night, but not because of his musical endeavours. But he, to me, represents a really interesting case study in 2 areas. One, he meets with heads of government of all political persuasions through his endeavours to, at least it was about getting AIDS medication into Africa, and I think that's probably morphed into COVID-related issues, but still meets with heads of government, different political persuasions, and he can go into those meetings with a clear idea of what he would like to get out of it, but a stronger idea on, well, what's in it for that person. I can't just walk in and say, I need you to give me however many billions of dollars for this project. They're not going to do it. But he has a good understanding of what makes them tick, why they want what they want. So his ability to, I guess, converse and negotiate across a big spectrum interests me hugely. And also that they run a monumentally big business, and there's been a bunch of times where they have put their entire everything they've made up to that point has been reinvested into the next thing. Maybe it's a big tour, maybe it's a movie at one point.
Yeah.
And then they'll do it all again. So this idea of kind of going, I'm trying to think of a better expression, but going all in and then making it work. Again, that's hugely inspiring. Bono would be one. Bruce Cockburn, another musician, but not for his musician. In 1987, he did a song, "If a Tree Falls in the Forest." I'm sure you remember it. And he talks about there was a clearing of the Amazon rainforest at the time, losing the rate of a species every single day. We cut and move on and creating brand new floodplains. And the imagery was quite stark. That was 1987. We're still having the same conversation, except the places that he was talking about no longer exist.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear how he feels about that. I know how I feel about it. Yeah. But I heard that song the other day and I just thought, that was 1987. Why are we still stuck in the same place? And perhaps that's a full circle back to Bono and someone with that negotiating ability, that ability to galvanise people across the political spectrum into a common goal. Yeah, I can see how those 2 folks could fit together.
You could probably sit back and watch on with those. So who's your third?
And the third, that's my creative collective answer. That's my family. That's my kids. Parents, brothers, sister, my wife's family, they count as one unit, one organism. Yeah. And, we do a good dinner party. So,
well, I was going to say pasta's probably on the menu.
Yeah, maybe. Although
you've seen enough of that.
No. Although I don't, we grow all our own veggies at home. We almost never buy veggies, so our cooking is very simple, and I don't make a huge effort with cooking these days, but it would involve going for a walk around the garden. What's growing? Right, now we have this collection of goodies. What are we going to do with it? And so that's how cooking is for me.
Do you go sweet or savoury as your first preference?
Only preference, savoury.
Yeah, okay. And so if we looked at the average weekend, or let's take this weekend, what's your plans for the weekend?
Oh, weekend, possibly a bit of a bush excursion somewhere. I have just bought a mountain bike, not, might I point out, to do crazy, downhill mountain biking, but so that we can cover more mileage in these bush and geographical excursions. So possibly we might get out on the bike. Maybe we'll just go for a wander. But yeah, that's my weekend. Oh, it might even be a long weekend, is it?
That's right. For this one.
I never even think of long weekends. I love work. So Wendy will say, "Oh, are you taking Monday off?" Yes. But it is this weekend, so I'm a little bit proud that even I knew it was a long weekend. So.
Well, Paul Smith, it's been a pleasure to meet you for the first time, although you did alert me before we started the journey that we've crossed paths multiple times in life through different entertainment scenarios and what have you. But nice to hear part of your journey, what makes you tick, which I know is something you clearly are excited about ensuring we capture over time as well in the community. And thanks for being part of the journey.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.